This happened a few months ago. I was 34 and needed a break from my freelance graphic design job. I often rented Airbnbs to find inspiration in new places. This time, I chose a secluded cabin in the woods of West Virginia. It looked cozy with its creaky floors and vintage furniture. I thought it would be the perfect spot to recharge my creativity and escape from city life. I'm not sure why, but I've never stopped thinking about it. The first night was calm. I settled in and enjoyed the fresh air on the porch. I heard the leaves rustle and the occasional snap of a twig. Everything felt nice and peaceful. But then, on the second night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to a thumping noise coming from the attic. At first, I thought it was just the house settling, or maybe some animal. So I tried to ignore it and go back to sleep, but the noise just kept going. Maybe it was something in my head, I thought. The next day, I found an old toy under the bed. It was a small, dusty action figure with one arm missing. I couldn't remember bringing it with me, and a chill ran down my spine. I tried to shake it off and went out for a hike. I hoped the fresh air would clear my head, but when I returned, I noticed damp footprints on the wooden floor. They looked like they led straight to the attic door. I felt my heart race. I didn't want to believe I was being watched, but something felt off. Each night, the thumping grew louder, more rhythmic, like a heartbeat. I started to dread the sound. In the stillness of the cabin, it was impossible to ignore. By the fourth night, I was terrified. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening. It felt like it was taunting me. I contemplated going up to the attic. Every second felt heavier. I thought maybe I should leave, but part of me wanted to know what was happening. So, I stayed. Was I imagining things? I still couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Then came the final night. I was jolted awake again by a loud crash. It felt like something had fallen in the attic. I knew I had to check. I hesitated, but curiosity won. I slowly approached the attic door, heart pounding in my chest. I gripped the doorknob with clammy hands and opened it a crack. The darkness was thick up there. Then, something moved. A shadow darted into the corner, and I gasped. I couldn't see what it was. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks, but I had to know. Why was I suddenly so afraid? Then, as if in response, the thumping stopped. A chilling silence fell over the cabin. I turned to leave. But that's when I heard a whisper that sent chills down my spine. It said, "Why are you here?" All my courage faded. I bolted back to my room. I huddled under the covers for the rest of the night. In the morning, I left that cabin without looking back. I didn't know what I had experienced. I just wanted to forget. But forgetting was the hardest part. It wasn't easy to shake off the cabin's grip. I returned to my apartment, but my mind was still in those woods. Each creak of my own floorboards made me jump. The memory of that whisper haunted me. Days turned into weeks, but the feeling wouldn't fade. I became obsessed with the idea of going back for answers, like I was pulling on a thread that refused to unravel. Finally, I made the decision. I booked another stay, not at that cabin, but at a nearby Airbnb that had decent reviews. It was a different place altogether, yet I hoped it would help me make sense of what had happened. Maybe my experience had been a fluke. I arrived at my new temporary home, a small cottage on the edge of another wooded area, with a garden filled with flowers. It looked inviting and bright compared to the dark memories of the cabin. The first evening passed quietly. I sat at the kitchen table, sketching some design ideas while the sun set outside. It felt good to have a fresh start. But as darkness enveloped the cottage, something about the air changed. It became heavy, like a warning. I dismissed it, attributing it to residual anxiety. That night, I woke up to a sound. A soft whispering echoed through the stillness of the room. "Help us." It wasn't as chilling as the voice in the cabin, but it was unsettling. I sat up, heart racing, my hands trembling. The room was dark. I convinced myself it was just the wind or maybe my imagination. The next day, I decided to explore the area, hoping to distract myself. I met a local woman at a small gas station. She seemed friendly enough, and I felt compelled to ask her about the woods. "Do you know if any strange things happen around here?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She hesitated, her expression shifting. Well, people talk about sounds in the woods at night. You know, whispers and thumping. Folks say it's the spirits of those who never left. A shiver ran down my spine. I smiled politely but felt a sense of dread creeping back. That evening, I sat outside on the porch to take in the scenery, trying to clear my mind. But then, I noticed movement in the edge of the woods. 3 figures stood just beyond the tree line, barely visible. I squinted, trying to make them out. They were tall and slender. One raised an arm as if to wave. Was I imagining it again? I blinked rapidly, but when I looked back, they were gone. My heart raced. I felt an urge to follow, to understand what I had just seen. But I knew better than to venture out there alone. Memories flooded back. The shadows, the whispers. I couldn't help but think that I was somehow linked to these experiences. That night, I heard the whispers again. They echoed more clearly now. Help us. Come find us. This time, it didn't sound like a plea. It felt like a command. I tossed and turned, fear knotting my stomach. I buried my head under the covers, my pulse pounding in my ears. Just when I thought I might drift off, a loud bang came from the kitchen. I froze, breath hitching. Someone was in the house. I held my breath, straining to listen. The pounding in my heart threatened to drown out any other sound. The kitchen was only a few steps away, but it felt like a chasm separating me from whatever lurked there. My instincts screamed at me to get out, but I was paralyzed. The noise came again, a series of crashes that echoed through the quiet cottage. I flipped on the lamp beside my bed, the glow casting long shadows on the walls. I thought about calling for help, but who would I even call? The nearest neighbors? Would they come running, or think I was just imagining things again? I slipped out of bed, inching towards the door. I had to see what was happening. With every step, I felt the weight of the air grow heavier, as if the space itself was aware of my fear. When I reached the kitchen door, I hesitated. The whispers floated back into my mind, an unsettling reminder of the presence haunting me. I swung the door open. The kitchen was empty. My heart sank, but then I noticed the scattered items on the floor. A chair was toppled over, and a pan lay against the wall, the handle still warm. A chill ran through me. It was impossible for anything or anyone to cause such a mess without entering. I stepped inside, quickly scanning the room for signs of intrusion or anything that might explain the chaos. The back door stood ajar, creaking slightly in the breeze. Had I left it open? I couldn't remember. Just as I was about to close it, I heard laughter. It was muffled, distant, but unmistakably there. My stomach twisted. I backed further into the kitchen, my skin crawling. I decided I needed to leave. This place felt unsafe, like it was alive with something I couldn't comprehend. But then, a flicker in my peripheral vision caught my attention. I turned my head, heart racing, and there it was. A flash of light at the edge of the woods, far beyond the trees. It pulsed rhythmically, like a beacon calling to me. My pulse quickened again, drawn as much by fear as by an inexplicable urge to know more. I should have turned and left, but instead, my curiosity won. I reached for my jacket, ready to grab a flashlight, but before I could, I felt a presence behind me. I spun around, expecting to see someone, something, but the kitchen remained empty. Yet the air seemed charged, thick with unseen energy. Then, the whispers returned. They filled the space, more insistent now. Come. To us. I stumbled back, my heart hammering against my ribs. I needed to leave, but my body felt glued to the floor. The only thing I could manage was to shrug on my jacket. The whispers grew louder, almost drowning me in their urgency. Suddenly, a figure stepped into view at the back door. It was shadowy, indistinct, but I could feel its gaze pinning me in place. My instinct screamed that I had to run. With a sudden burst of clarity, I darted out of the kitchen, across the living room, and toward the front door. I flung it open and stepped outside, taking a deep breath of the cool night air. The woods stood before me, dark and foreboding, but I had no choice. I had to find out what was happening. The light in the distance pulsed again, and I felt an irresistible pull toward it. Wait! I had to know who was out there. I took a step into the woods, determined to confront whatever was waiting for me. But the moment I entered the shadows, everything went dark. The darkness swallowed me whole. I blinked, trying to adjust, but the shapes around me remained hidden in a suffocating void. My senses were on high alert, but all I could hear was the low rustling of leaves in my own breath, quick and shallow. The pulsing light was still there, somewhere in the distance, illuminating the path ahead. With my heart racing, I took a cautious step forward. My foot sunk into the damp earth, sending a chill up my spine. I strained to listen again. The laughter had faded, but the whispers persisted, now swirling around me like a dense fog. "Come to us." The words repeated like an incantation, and I felt their tug, a magnetic pull drawing me deeper into the woods. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice betraying a tremor. Silence answered me, amplifying the heavy unease. I had to move. I couldn't stand still. I stumbled through the underbrush, branches snagging my jacket as I pushed forward. The branches clawed at me like desperate hands, and I fought against them, each step a freight train colliding with my instinct to flee. But that light, it beckoned. As I drew closer, I spotted a faint outline of something among the trees. I squinted into the darkness, and there it was, a small clearing, bathed in that ethereal glow. But it wasn't just the light. It was the figures standing there, shadowy forms gathered around something on the ground. A jolt of fear shot through me, and a primal urge to retreat surged, but my feet wouldn't move. They were rooted to the spot. I opened my mouth to call out again, but only a strangled whisper escaped. The figures turned toward me, faces obscured, but the glint of eyes caught the light as they stared. "Join us," one of them mouthed, though no sound escaped. I felt dizzy, caught between terror and an irrational desire to see what they were doing. Was it a gathering? A meeting? Or something far more sinister? That's when I saw it. An object lying in the center of the circle. It glimmered, reflecting the light like a beacon. Instinct kicked in as I took a step back. I turned to flee, but the laughter erupted again, louder this time, a cacophony crashing through the quiet of the woods. The figures advanced, their movements fluid and swift. Panic surged within me. I ran, branches slapping against my skin as I sprinted back through the darkness. My breath came in ragged gasps. I could feel the whispers chasing me, the laughter echoing behind my every step. I burst back through the tree line, a gasp escaping my lips as I dove onto my front porch. I slammed the door shut behind me, my heart pounding like a war drum. I leaned against it, eyes wide, wishing for the calm of my cottage. But the whispers were still there, now muted but insistent. I couldn't shake the images from my mind. What had I just witnessed? My skin prickled with a cold sweat. I needed answers. But the shadows were gathering again. I turned to the window, and my heart sank. The light was still there, pulsing just beyond the tree line, a stark reminder that I wasn't done yet. I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with the events of the night. Every creak of the floorboards and whisper of the wind felt like a reminder of what I had seen. I grabbed my phone and checked the time. It was almost midnight. The shadows in my room danced unnaturally, as though the darkness outside was creeping in. I needed to do something. I couldn't just let this go. I threw on a jacket and grabbed a flashlight. I had to go back to that clearing. I needed answers. The thought sent a wave of nausea through me, but curiosity pushed me forward. I stepped outside, the cool night air biting at my skin. The light still pulsed, a distant heartbeat drawing me in. I moved cautiously, retracing my steps through the familiar maze of trees. Each sound was amplified in the quiet, the crackle of twigs, the rustle of leaves. My heart raced, but I pressed on, the glow growing brighter. As I approached the clearing, I slowed down. Then I heard it. A new sound. Not laughter this time. Not whispers. This was a low hum, rhythmic and almost melodic. I felt it wash over me as I stepped into the clearing, illuminating the scene before me. The figures were still there, but they no longer seemed to notice me. They swayed to the sound, hands raised, faces still obscured. The object in the center shone brightly, and I could see it clearly now. It was a mirror, framed in what looked like twisted wood, the light reflecting off it in brilliant patterns. I ventured closer, mesmerized. I barely registered the figures surrounding me until one suddenly turned. Its eyes met mine, dark and hollow. "You shouldn't have come back," it breathed without moving its lips. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. I stumbled back, but the pull of the mirror was strong. I felt drawn to it, the glass promising answers, or perhaps something more sinister. What would happen if I looked? The whispers morphed into encouragement, filling my head with unknown words. I shook my head, unwilling to surrender to the temptation. But in that moment of hesitation, the figures shifted, closing the circle tighter. I felt trapped, the weight of their gaze heavy on my chest. "Join us," they echoed in harmony, their voices now resonating with an eerie beauty. Panic flared again, and I stumbled backward. My foot caught on a root, and I fell, landing hard on the cool earth. The mirror reflected my panic-stricken face, along with the figures looming over me. I forced myself to look away, searching for a way out. I scrambled to my feet, pushing against the collective presence closing in. "No!" I shouted, desperation leaking into my voice, but a hand reached out, cold and demanding, gripping my wrist. I felt the chill travel up my arm. My heart thundered as I tried to pull away. But it was too late. Instinctively, I glanced at the mirror again, and for a brief moment, I felt like I was staring into another world. Then everything went dark. The light blinked out, swallowed by the blackness around me. My heartbeat echoed in my ears, racing like a wild animal. I was alone. The figures vanished, the hum silenced. But the dread grew as I felt a presence linger. Something in the air shifted, and I knew this wasn't over. I was still being watched. I stood in the enveloping darkness, my breaths quick and shallow. It felt as if the night itself was swallowing me whole. I could hear nothing. No wind, no rustling of leaves, just the eerie silence punctuated by my own heartbeat. I rubbed my wrist where the cold hand had gripped me. The chill lingered, a faint reminder of their touch. I took a shaky step forward, the beams of my flashlight cutting through the pitch black. My instincts screamed at me to run, to get as far away from that clearing as possible. But a small part of me was still drawn back to the mirror, to the unanswered questions. I swallowed hard and turned in the direction where I believed it stood, trying to navigate the familiar terrain. Just as I thought I was alone, a rustle came from my left. My heart leapt into my throat, and I swung my flashlight toward the sound. A small animal darted out from behind a tree, but instead of relief, my heart sank deeper. If I was scared of a raccoon, how could I ever face whatever it was that had been in that clearing? I took a deep breath and pressed on, my mind flitting between fear and the need for answers. As I neared the spot where the mirror had stood, I hesitated. Would it be there? What if the figures were waiting? The flashlight flickered, and I had to shake it to get it working again. That's when I saw it. A figure emerging from the shadows. I froze, my body tensing. It wasn't one of the entities from before. This silhouette was human, albeit distorted by the dim light. "Hey!" I called out, my voice echoing in the silence. Panic clawed at my insides. The figure stepped closer, and as the light caught it, my breath caught in my throat. It was a woman, her face familiar, yet strange. It was someone from my town, a local history teacher I'd had years ago. But her eyes were not the soft, welcoming ones I remembered. They had a dark emptiness that sent chills racing down my spine. "You shouldn't have come back." She echoed the words from the entity earlier, and a rush of cold washed over me. "You're part of it now." I shook my head, backing away. "You're not real," I stammered, even as dread twisted in my stomach. "You can't be." She laughed softly, and the sound was hollow, devoid of life. "You think this is a game? You wanted the truth. Now you're tangled in the web." The pull of the mirror loomed behind me like an unseen beacon. I wanted to look at it, to understand what it meant, but I knew the danger. "I need to get out of here," I muttered, turning away from her. But she stepped in front of me, blocking my path. "It's too late for that, isn't it?" As I tried to push past her, the air shifted again, growing heavy with an unbearable weight. The shadows around us began to move, swirling, twisting into a shape that began to resemble the figures from the clearing. They were back. With panic surging through me, I spun on my heel and ran, the night closing in behind me. Each step felt like it sank deeper into the ground, the weight of their eyes on my back driving me forward. I could sense the mirror calling out behind me. Answers awaited, but I had to escape first. Then I heard a voice trail behind me, softer now. "Join us." I dashed toward the tree line, desperate to break free from the nightmare surrounding me. But I had no idea what awaited me in the darkness. I ran, my feet pounding against the soft earth, fueled by sheer instinct. Shadows flickered on the edges of my vision, and I could feel them closing in on me, but I dared not look back. The woman's laughter echoed behind me, intermingling with the whispers of the figures. They seemed to dance just beyond the reach of my flashlight, as if toying with me. I burst through the tree line and into the thick underbrush. Branches snagged at my clothes, pain shooting through my arms, but I didn't stop. Each step was a frantic attempt to distance myself from whatever darkness lurked behind. My heart raced, and my breaths came in gasps as I scrambled toward the path that usually led out of the woods. But the path was unfamiliar. As I stumbled through the dense vegetation, I realized I had turned away from where I had come. Panic clawed at my throat. I was lost, not just in the woods, but in the dread of what I had awakened. The flashlight flickered again, and this time it went out, plunging me into darkness. I fumbled with it, shaking it. "Come on," my voice echoed futilely. In that silence, I could feel the weight of the forest close in, and a prickle of dread spread across my skin. I couldn't stay here. Just as I thought I might give in to despair, I heard a sound break through the silence, a faint buzzing, like a swarm of bees. It was distant but distinct enough to grab my attention. Was it the voice of someone? Whoever it was, they might help me get out. I followed the sound, carefully making my way through the underbrush, praying the path would lead me to safety. Then suddenly, ahead of me, a light flickered to life. It was dim, but real. My heart raced with hope. I rushed toward it, only to stop short. What I found was another clearing, but this one felt different. A shattered mirror lay in the grass, shards reflecting the faint light. It looked similar to the mirror from earlier, but this one wasn't whole. Pieces glimmered like stars in the depths of night, scattered memories threatening to pull me in. As I stepped closer, I caught a glimpse of movement in the reflections. Faces, distorted and twisted, figures that seemed all too familiar. They danced within the glass, beckoning me with curved fingers, whispering secrets only the damned could understand. My breath hitched again. The dark woman's voice echoed in my mind. "You're part of it now." I clamped my hands over my ears, trying to drown them out. I needed to get away from here, away from this maddening place. Then, a shadow emerged from behind the shattered mirror. It was another figure, one I never expected to see. My heart dropped. It was someone I recognized, a friend who had gone missing months ago. His eyes were vacant, a reflection of the darkness surrounding us. "You shouldn't have come here," he murmured. The buzzing grew louder, and suddenly I realized it wasn't just bees. It was a swarm of faces, all staring through the shards of the forgotten mirror. Each one was a soul trapped in the web of secrets, begging for release. With a surge of fear, I turned to run again, but the ground shifted beneath me as if it wanted to swallow me whole. I darted toward the tree line, desperately seeking anything familiar. I knew I was sliding closer to the edge of whatever nightmare I had unleashed, a realm of darkness that craved my fear. As I pushed deeper into the woods, I stumbled, falling hard to the ground. The light from the shattered mirror flickered in my mind, and I felt the pull of the unknown. I knew I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. The answers were out there, but I was no longer sure if I could handle them. Then, as if on cue, the whispers called my name. I jolted upright, heart pounding, the whispers echoing in my ears like a haunting melody. They didn't just call my name, they were demanding my attention, like a child tugging at its mother's skirt. My senses screamed at me to flee, yet I felt inexplicably drawn to the shadows that caressed the edges of the clearing. Slowly, I pushed myself to my feet. The oppressive weight of dread settled over me like a thick fog. I started walking, instinctively heading in the direction opposite the whispers. But the sound followed. It came from all around me, echoing through the trees. Against my better judgment, I turned back toward the broken mirror. Perhaps there was something I needed to understand. Maybe I could find the answers buried within those fractured reflections. I stepped cautiously into the clearing, driven by a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity. As I approached, the forest quieted, as if holding its breath. I kneeled down beside the shards glimmering in the twilight. The faces swirled within the glass, their mouths moving, yet no sound escaped. I reached out, feeling the cool surface beneath my fingertips, and then I froze. A face in the shards caught my eye. It wasn't my friend. This one was different. Her eyes were wide, pleading. "Help me," she mouthed, and in that moment, it felt as if she was reaching out to me. I pulled my hand back in shock. What was happening? Were these souls trying to communicate with me? Suddenly, the buzzing returned, this time sharper and more insistent. I staggered back, bumping into the edge of the mirror. The ground shifted beneath me again, and with a chilling realization, I noticed the reflection of feet emerging from the dark behind me, tangled in the underbrush. They weren't just shadows. They were forms, figures stepping across the clearing, their bodies semi-visible, dissolving into the surrounding darkness. There were 3 of them, silhouettes against the backdrop of gathering night. They stood still, watching me. My heart raced again, thumping like a frantic drum. "What do you want?" I shouted, but my voice cracked, merging with the whispers as if they were all one. One of the figures lifted a hand, and for a moment, I felt a jolt of recognition. I was sure I had seen that face before. It was a fellow hiker who had gone missing the previous summer. She had vanished without a trace, just like my friend. Panic surged through me. "No! Stay away!" The buzzing grew louder, drowning out my thoughts. I turned to run, but my foot snagged on something, a vine or a root. I couldn't tell. I stumbled again, and as I fell, I felt a cold breath of air sweep across my neck. The darkness wrapped around me, and I knew I was not alone anymore. Then, just as quickly as it started, everything went silent. The buzzing ceased, and darkness enveloped me completely. My heart was racing in my chest, but I couldn't tell if it was fear or exhilaration. I pushed myself up from the ground, blinking hard to dispel the shadows. And then, I saw it. Just ahead, a shape crouched low behind a tree. It wasn't one of the figures. This one looked alive. A pair of eyes shone out of the void, fixing on me with intent. That's when I realized I was being watched. I squinted into the dim light, trying to make sense of the figure. It shifted slightly, muscles tensing, as if it were deciding whether to stay still or run. Panic shot through me again as I realized this was not part of the nightmare I'd been trapped in. This felt real. "Who are you?" I croaked, my voice barely rising above a whisper. The eyes didn't blink. They remained locked on me, unyielding. I hesitated, weighing my options. I could run, flee into the dark woods, but deep down I knew that would only lead me further into the unknown. I had to confront whatever was watching me. "Say something!" I demanded, hoping for a response that didn't emerge from the depths of my own paranoia. The figure took a step forward, and I caught a glimpse of disheveled hair and a dirt-smudged face. It was a woman, her clothes frayed as if she had been lost for days, maybe weeks. "Help!" she whispered, her voice breaking with desperation. A chill raced through me. Was this another spirit, or was she real? Just as I was about to reach out for her, she jerked back. "Don't!" she cried, instinctively raising her hands as if warding off an unseen threat. "They'll come for you." "Who?" I asked, my heart beating loudly in my ears. "Who will come for me?" Her gaze darted around the clearing, scanning the tree line. "The Watchers. They collect the lost," she said, her voice trembling. "You need to leave, before it's too late." A flicker of movement caught my eye behind her, and I could see the shadows swell again, shapes lurking just beyond the edge of what was visible. Panic gripped me, but it was joined by urgency. "I can't leave without my friend. I have to find her." "Your friend? She's here, lost like the others," the woman said. Her eyes filled with a mix of fear and pity. "If you stay, you may join them." I opened my mouth to ask more, but she took another step back into the darkness. In that moment, there was a rustle in the underbrush. The shadows thickened and began to close in on me, the buzzing returning with a power that made my skin crawl. Someone, or something, was coming. "Run! Get out!" she screamed. But before I could react, a gust of wind whipped through the clearing, knocking me off my feet. I tumbled backward, landing with a thud against the cold earth. I looked up, but the woman was gone. The trees loomed closer, branches clawing at the sky as if to pull me down into the dark. The buzzing escalated, almost filling my head. I scrambled to my feet, heart racing, instincts taking over. I didn't know where to go, but I knew I couldn't stand still. As I sprinted into the thickening gloom, my mind raced with questions. What had just happened? Who was that woman? And what did she mean about my friend being lost? The shadows behind me twisted, stretching out like fingers grasping for something just out of reach. I ran harder, adrenaline surging through my veins. Then, a voice echoed in the distance, familiar and haunting. "Help me. Please." It was her voice, my friend's voice. I skidded to a halt, panic twisting my gut. The whispers had returned, becoming louder, a cacophony that filled the air. I had to make a choice. My heart raced as I turned back toward the beckoning sound. Would I dare approach the darkness again? I hesitated for a split second, caught between fear and the desperate hope of hearing my friend's voice again. The whispering shadows loomed close behind me, urging me to flee, but the sound of her plea wrapped around my resolve. I took a deep breath and forced myself to move forward, each step echoing with uncertainty. With my flashlight flickering weakly, I strained to listen, navigating the darkness with only the pulsing rhythm of my heartbeat to guide me. "Help me." The voice was faint, like a breath carried on the wind. It had to be her. I pressed on, the weight of doubt clawing at my instinct to turn back. Through the dim light, I saw a silhouette. I nearly stumbled over a fallen branch, muscles locking in panic as I raised the flashlight toward it. My heart raced, but it wasn't her. Just a glimpse of another shadow, indistinct and flickering at the tree line. My entire being screamed at me to run, but I was desperate now. "Is that you?" I shouted, voice trembling. "Where are you?" The forest responded with echoes of silence that felt suffocating. I could feel the shadows shifting, thickening, whispering malicious secrets in a language I couldn't understand. I hurried through the underbrush, branches grabbing at me like clawing fingers. The whispers morphed, an erratic chorus urging me deeper into the heart of the woods. I was swirling through a maze, but I couldn't lose sight of that voice. Not now. The shadows began to separate, forming a path. Through the swirling darkness ahead, I spotted a glimmer of light, caught in the grasp of a small clearing. "Please, I'm coming!" I called out, fear fueling my desperation as I bolted toward it. As I entered the clearing, I glimpsed the mirror once more, now fractured and splintered, casting broken reflections that danced in and out of view. The figures lingered just beyond the light, their forms shifting like smoke. They moved closer, not yet revealing their intent. I had seen enough to recognize the danger. "Stay away!" I shouted as I swung the flashlight over the ground, but the figures seemed unfazed, their laughter reverberating around me. "Help!" I screamed again into the night, my voice cracking against the eerie stillness. Then I felt a presence beside me. There she was, my friend. I could hardly believe my eyes. But when I met her gaze, the joy was quickly undermined by confusion. Her eyes were wide, unblinking and glassy, like she was staring through me. "Forget this place," she said, urgency lacing her voice. "You need to go, now." "Why? What happened to you?" I pleaded, taking a cautious step closer. "They feed on fear. It's too late for me." Her voice grew quieter, breaths ragged, as the figures encircled us, forming a wall of darkness and whispers. "You have to leave before they take you." My heart raced faster than ever, the air thick with dread. I knew I had to act, but what could I do? The whispers had grown into screams, pulsing through the very core of the forest. They thrummed with danger, and I felt the pull of the mirror, the haunted glow drawing me in like a moth to flame. "Run!" she urged again, and I hesitated, already torn. And just like that, the figures lunged, blurring the line between shadow and reality. I stumbled back, eyes darting desperately. No! I turned on my heel, instinct taking charge. I sprinted with everything in me, dodging limbs as the whispers shrieked in fury behind me. Don't leave me! Her voice was frantic now, distorted and lost in the chaos. I couldn't turn back. With my heart hammering, I stumbled through darkness and underbrush. My breath sawed in my chest, every sound amplifying the terror that cloaked me. I tore away from the clearing, tearing through branches that snagged at my clothes. I could feel the cold grip of pursuit radiating from the shadows converging behind me. Suddenly, I broke free from the trees, breathless and heart racing. My feet found the path, twisted and uneven. I ran, hoping desperately the shadows wouldn't follow. As I darted down the trail, the whispers faded at last, replaced by the distant hum of the night. I leaped onto the gravel road, panting in the cool night air, my pulse slowly beginning to find a steadier rhythm. I stumbled to the end of the road, my mind clouded with questions. Had I left my friend behind in the darkness? For now, I was free, but doubt loomed like a shadow on the horizon. I glanced back towards the woods, where the light pulsed, still flickering just beyond the tree line. I didn't have answers. I didn't know what awaited me if I returned, or if the whispers would forever haunt my dreams. But whatever happened inside that mirror was not finished yet. I turned away from the woods and marched away from that treacherous place, carrying the haunting memory of the night I had barely escaped. Sometimes I wonder if my friend is still out there, caught in that darkness. I still hear whispers when the wind blows, filling my head with an unsettling reminder that some places never let you go, and some truths remain forever hidden.